So what is it? It is absolutely an American phenomenon. It was brought into the UK 4 or 5 years ago by Amazon and as to Walmart. It is the day after Thanksgiving in the US, so the 4th Friday in November, as is always the way. It is in the States a day to visit the mall. So you are typically not at work, yeah, and you need to walk off the turkey and the pumpkin pie and all the other things that you consume. It is in the States a day of retail holiday discount. There's no doubt about that. It is although that has changed. There are other things that have started to emerge in the US market around Black Friday that I'll touch on a little bit later on. What it isn't, there's a few things. It isn't a traditional UK shopping event. So it's an import. And it's one that is starting to become more and more unwelcome. There's been quite a lot of talk in the last few days. In fact, I did this session up with the West Midlands region about 3 weeks ago, and I've substantially changed the slides since then because of all the changes that have happened in the market over the course of those 3 weeks. So it's not a UK event. And on the 27th of November, as it will be this year, we will all be at work. So we don't take the day after Thanksgiving off because we don't celebrate Thanksgiving. As a consequence, it has become more and more of an online event because people are having to shop from the desktop. And there are a number of different cycles of activity that you see. So there's a big surge in demand on Black Friday at 7 in the morning from people who actually get up and go on and try and grab the bargains if they're not actually able to go onto the high street and or to the local Asda and have a scrap for a TV. What it also isn't, it's not actually designed as a day to lose your commercial mind, although it appears to have become that in the last 2 years. So this appears to be a day where all common sense within the retail sector seems to disappear, and people decide, or have decided, to absolutely crash their business models and their plans in the sake of actually chasing the top line. So just as a little bit of a background to the chaos that happened last year, we'll just take a quick look at what some of the features were. So what we were seeing is that we actually had an unprecedented level of sales, there's no doubt about that. It was an exceptional year for e-tailers, whether multi-channel, single-channel, whatever it might be. And Black Friday and Cyber Monday came over a weekend where the hype really came together and created a very short-term and what Andrew Starkey described, an exceptional peak. It was quite interesting that immediately after the event, Andy Street, the head man at John Lewis, came out and said it's not in the interest of retailers to continue to grow the pace of Black Friday at the expense of other weeks. I personally hope we move back in future to a more normal pattern. Andy Street said the genie's out of the bottle. It's very, very difficult once it's started to actually get off it. And there's a number of reasons for that. But what you actually saw was it became a record shopping day. I think the UK market took about 820 million. And it's likely that this year we will see the first ever, so that's online, we'll see the first ever 1 billion online day on the 27th of November this year. So what we were expecting was this pattern. So December 2013, that was Black Friday, Cyber Monday, a little bit of a drop afterwards over the weekend, and then Manic Monday the following weekend. So there's 2 cycles of demand. This Black Friday, Cyber Monday being the most significant. And so the expectation was a 12% growth, same pattern. That's what actually happened. Quite remarkable. So the really interesting thing is, before Black Friday actually happened, there was a dip in the market, a dip in demand. 2 carriers that I know of were considering going out to the market and discounting their parcel rates because they didn't think Christmas was going to happen. Thank Christ they didn't. That would have caused absolute chaos. What it was customers recognised that this was coming along. Amazon have started today the advertising of deals for their Black Friday events. So there's a 2 to 3 week warm-up period where retailers actually start to seed information out to the consumer, and the consumer naturally will start to respond to that. What then happened is that we got a takeoff of demand that was way over expectation, 30% above forecast. I think it's really interesting that a lot of the statements that have come out, in fact, Yodel released a piece of insight into the market about 3 or 4 weeks ago that said 8% of UK customers shopped Black Friday last year, but 30% want to this year. Yeah? There were probably 30% of customers wanted to shop Black Friday last year, but couldn't, because there wasn't the merchandise available. I spent most of Black Friday last year walking up and down Oxford Street, seeing what was going on. There were a few interesting dynamics, but customers were starting to behave quite irrationally in some ways. So they'd have the early morning fights for a TV at half price, and then people were buying the same product at full price later in the day, which I thought was quite interesting. So what we actually got was the first weekend peak in demand, which was a peak on top of the peak that was actually expected. Now, I challenge you to find anybody who within their infrastructure will carry 30% additional capacity. It generally just doesn't exist. And as a consequence, the carrier market, the parcels market, struggled. These are some of the things that happened. So as we went into Black Friday, we got lower volumes than were expected as a consequence of the pre-advertising of it. You then got many parcels entering the network, way more than expected during the Black Friday weekend. And as retailers started to pick the demand on Friday, they carried a lot of that demand into Saturday. They couldn't clear their own warehouses. And picked that and actually were feeding that out into the market again on the Saturday and on the Sunday, and then Cyber Monday hit as well. So before they had actually cleared the backlog of activity, they were actually forcing more volume out into the market again. So there's a huge spike in the market during that weekend. Parcel volume per trailer spiked, and a lot more volume than expected entered the networks. A lot of the carriers went out to the market and said, we need more drivers. You know what the driver situation is. I know one carrier who went out looking for 90 additional drivers over that weekend and got none whatsoever. And the problem was not the fact that they didn't have the final mile capability to actually pick and deliver the goods. It's the fact they didn't have the trunking capability. All of their equipment was all of a sudden used up. So every trailer that the carriers had in their networks was full of inbound merchandise that they had to process through the sortation networks and get out to the delivery depots. They couldn't get them into sort because they didn't have the transport infrastructure. So all of the vehicles became tied up, essentially. There was no let-up in volume, significant volume of parcels being held in trailers, tied up all of the drivers. Drivers ran out of hours, as you would expect under those circumstances, because people are trying to work the hours as much as possible. And the thing just came to a dramatic halt. So Yodel, as one, actually suspended operations for 1 to 2 days, depending on where you were in the country and which retailer you might be. And very quickly afterwards, it actually returned to normal. So there was an awful lot of hype, an awful lot of hysteria. The press went mad and told everybody they weren't going to get Jimmy's present, his whatever it was, for Christmas. One of the interesting features of last year was that, and I'll show you the stats in a moment, the actual sales over Cyber Monday and Black Friday were not incremental. All it was people either delaying a planned purchase, which is why you got the dip, or pulling forward a planned purchase. Essentially, there's an elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is, quite simply, that whilst it grew, sales grew very, very marginally year on year, margin dropped, and as a consequence of the drop in margin, the general retail market lost their shirt on Black Friday last year. So it didn't actually increase the overall sales proportions. It actually crashed profits. So this whole thing about, as I said at the start, this is a day at the moment where commercial common sense seems to drift out the window. And this is really about marketing and marketing-driven logistics actually starting to create a disjointed supply chain. So quite an interesting series of stats, and this is what's causing some retailers to think twice, think 3 times about what they're doing. This is an interesting one. This is George Weston, chairman of Associated British Foods, who obviously own Primark, who said 4th of November, so around a week ago, Black Friday in the UK is pointless. It seems to ride online, and although we didn't run promotions last year, we saw a lot of people on high streets. All it seemed to do was bring forward sales. The week of Black Friday was good and the following week was bad. Waste of time. They are not participating in Black Friday this year. Oasis have come out and said, we are not participating in Black Friday this year. Asda said last week, we are considering reducing the activity levels on Black Friday. What they'll actually do, we don't know. They're one of the organisations that brought it to the market, and they'll have to be in there to some degree. But I think there's one or two dynamics that will probably play through. So what are we likely to see? Well, it will be big. It will be bigger than last year. We think that over 90% of retailers will participate one way or another. Now, participating one way or another doesn't mean that discount products. Some very interesting things happened last year. So Reece, as a retailer, did not participate in Black Friday at all in terms of product discounting. They got a 30% uplift in sales, and they got them all at full value. Thank you, happy Christmas. We'll shut the shops and have Christmas week off. They will probably do the same again, I would hazard a guess. And there will be a number that do that. In the States, there were some interesting patterns as well. So Lululemon, the sportswear retailer over in the States, used Black Friday to launch a new product range. They didn't discount at all. A number of retailers in the States for the last 2 years have been pulling events forward. So typically in the States, Black Friday starts on the Monday, and there are one or two retailers who actually do their biggest discounts on the Monday and decline discount towards the end of the week. And you're starting to see that here. So Argos pulling it forward and having red, white and blue Friday, I think is significant. There are other retailers that are going to do similar things. There will be a narrow range. I think that's where Asda are going to go. Less products under offer. Narrower ranges, still deep discounts. They're talking about 20% growth. So 810 million rather online last year, over $1 billion this year online in that day. There will be discounting on a smaller range. You'll still get a 50% off a TV if you're looking for it. I'm not sure there'll be that many of them. You probably won't have to wrestle for it in Asda or Tesco. There will be less immediacy. Absolutely. There are some very large retailers that we're talking to at the moment who are saying, we will tell the customer, you can have your 50% off, you're not going to get it the following day. Okay? We'll take 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Because you don't actually need it. X Factor will still go ahead without your new TV. And you can still watch whatever you want the following week. It will be a longer trading period, and there will be longer lead times. So quite an interesting dynamic starting to come through, because I think a lot of retailers burned themselves last year. And in general terms, the market is better prepared, with the ability to respond in a much more structured way than happened last year. Last year was very much an event where the supply chain was very siloed. So retailers internally, so the marketing teams didn't necessarily brief the logistics teams didn't brief the carrier market and so on and so forth particularly well. That's much better this year. And there's greater capacity. UK Mail have opened a new sort, Royal Mail are opening new operations on a local basis. Yodel have opened super delivery depots. Carol Woodhead at Hermes has put a second tier on her sorter in Warrington. So there's a lot more capacity in the market. There's not many more drivers. So we can sort as much as we want, but unless we actually flatten demand, we're just not going to have the driving personnel to be able to deliver it. But there will be, absolutely will be, disappointed customers. It's one thing I can guarantee. So if you all wanted to participate this year, in all likelihood 70% of you would be let down. In all likelihood. So that's not to try and create any kind of hype or hysteria and say, get up at 5 in the morning and place an order for a telly. There just will not be enough to go around. Some people will be disappointed. Still not. In general terms, we go into the market in better shape. Serviceability just dropped off in August, but generally it's been sitting above. It's actually recovered and it's sitting up here now. So generally, carriers are delivering in better shape than they were last year, the year before, the year before. And the market is actually sitting quite healthy. Currently running at about 15-16% up year on year again. And the expectation is that will flow through the month of December. Now, exactly what the shape looks like, well, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating, I'm afraid. But the expectation is that it will continue at some sort of rates. So, a little bit of a view on what happened last year, the challenge of the market this year, what's probably going to happen over the next few weeks. If it all comes out to be what I've said, Yeah, there's my email address and my handle. If it's wrong, forget me. I think I'll be finished. Thank you.
Thank you.